Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's December 11th, 2025. I'm going to call the business meeting of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District to order. First on our agenda today is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would stand and face the flag and join me in saying the pledge, I'd appreciate it. Good morning. It's nice to see you all here. We've got Mr. Wagner and Mr. Steinley will not be able to join us today. Mr. Martinez and Mr. Spotswood are both participating remotely. Mr. Martinez, are you on?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, Charlie. Mr. Spotswood?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, Robert. Thank you for being here. And Mr. Bergeron is not going to be able to make it? Okay. Happy holidays to everyone. You may have noticed, if you walk through the lobby, there's extra buzz out there this morning. The Employees Committee Annual Silent Auction is today, along with a bake sale. All proceeds for the silent auction are going to benefit the Palm Beach County Food Bank, and there are some wonderful items to bid on today. This is a great chance to do some holiday shopping. You can place your bid up until 12:30. At that time, all bidding is going to cease. Raffle prizes are going to be drawn, and winners will be notified to pay and pick up their prizes. Winning bidders will need to pay for their prize by the end of the day and arrange to pick up their prize as soon as possible. Winning bidders can pay with cash or check made payable to SFWMD Employee Committee. For those board members who are here, I'm going to ask you make sure your microphone is on when you speak into it, and you speak into it. You've done this before. For those board members on Zoom, I can't see you when you raise your hand, so if you want to speak or ask a question, please call out your name and I'll acknowledge you. Members of the public on Zoom who wish to address the board can use the raise your hand feature. If members of the public are having any trouble and need help, please go to our website, sfwmd.gov, and click the Ask Us button at the top of the page, and staff will help you out. If you're using a phone and you'd like to comment, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute or unmute. As a courtesy to others who wish to speak, members of the public are asked to comment only once on a topic. We're going to take public comment first from those who are here in person and submitted a comment card, followed by those with raised hands on Zoom. And now we're going to go to employee recognitions. Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right. Our December 2025 Employee of the Month is Nicole Niemeyer, Lead Project Manager for Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands. Now, I've got to pinch myself to see if I'm dreaming or not, because 2 days ago, we cut a ribbon which basically finished the projects for Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands. Imagine it. I mean, imagine finishing a whole authorized CERT project. It's just a great day to be me. But that wouldn't have happened without individuals, right? And this project was project managed by Nicole Niemeyer, and it's one thing to have a CERT project in the middle of the countryside. It's another thing to have a CERT project right down the middle of Main Street, right? And these CERT projects in Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands had neighbors, lots of neighbors. And what it took was a project manager that could not only manage the project to deliver it on time, yay, 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 but also to keep in good graces with all the neighbors. And if you attended the ribbon cutting 2 days ago, you saw a lot of grateful neighbors. They were excited about the recreational opportunities. They were excited about the project. They were not annoyed with all the noise, all the traffic, the closed road that was closed the whole time they were there. They were excited about the project. And that doesn't happen without a project manager that can manage a project well and be a great communicator at the same time. I toured senators down there. I toured congressmen. And whenever I got there, I started the tour, Nicole started to talk, and I said, I need to just shut up because Nicole is knocking it out of the park. And that's the kind of person she is. That's the kind of project manager is. And now we have some more finished CERT projects, and that is why Nicole is our Employee of the Month. Congratulations, Nicole. Our December 2025 Team of the Month is the Environmental Resource Permits Water Quality Standards Team that consists of Glenn Garreau, Sergio Guzman, Melissa Lawrence, Jesse Markle, Mohammed O'Day, and Patty Therion. So, for those of you that are hiding under a rock, the Senate passed Senate Bill 712, which upped the standards for post-construction stormwater treatment. I would venture to bet that we're the only state in the nation that has nitrogen and phosphorus words in their post-construction stormwater standards. And that's what this state did. So now we have expectations that when you're done with your development, you'll remove X amount of phosphorus, X amount of nitrogen before it's discharged. And that's complicated, right? Nitrogen is complicated. But this team basically said, hey, we've got new rules on the books. People are going to be applying for permits. They need to know what to expect. We need this to be a smooth situation. So this team took it upon their own initiative, quite frankly, and put together a training program to train all the folks that need to know how to apply for permits under these new standards. They're the only ones that did it. In the of all the water management districts and DEP, they're the only ones that did it. So as a result, they had 1,500 people sign up for this training, and they got that job done. And that was obviously across the state and probably outside the state, trying to learn how to implement the standards that we have. This is their own initiative. This didn't come from any kind of directive or anything like that. They said, we know this needs to happen, and that's good government, right? And that's what we like to embody here at the South Florida Water Management District, and that is why they're our Team of the Month in December. Congratulations. All right, time for some service awards, Mr. Chair. We have a 25-year service award for Vince Matera, Senior Land Management Assistant in the St. Cloud Field Station. Now, Vince came to us 25 years ago, and he started working basically in the St. Cloud Field Station, working on the Upper Kissimmee chain of lakes. And he basically started, and so he's been in that, taking care of our lands up there for 25 years. But before he came to us, he was in construction. He was a heavy equipment operator in construction in Palm Beach County, so there's a little story here. And he came within inches of losing his life. And that was kind of a sign from God to him. And he said, look, I need to change what I'm doing. And he went into what he loved, which was land management. And we've benefited from that for 25 years of him being in land management. So I guess I should say, thank you, God, for almost killing Vince. That doesn't sound right, but anyway, we're glad he's here with us now. So what Vince knows is he is very good at hydrologic restoration, wetland creation, and he's been doing that in the Upper Kissimmee Lakes, chain of lakes. And so what I am told is that he can take a look at a landscape and know exactly how the water should be. And then he can work on actually making that happen and putting it back together. And so we're benefiting from his expertise in places like Rough Island and Gardner Cobb Marsh, which is thousands of acres of restored wetland habitat. Thank you to Vince for doing that for us. And so he's also, this guy does land management like you wouldn't believe. He's also been doing prescribed burns for the 25 years from Homestead all the way up to Kissimmee. He's a burn boss. He's got the certifications to be a burn manager. And what I'm told is he's super trusted in that field. He's got relationships with all the other agencies, all the other folks that do burns from other agencies. He is so skilled that he can get that permit when no one else can, right? In that tight little space to get that burn done. And so he's been doing that a lot for us, and we very much appreciate it. He's very skilled with an airboat. He's owned one for most of his life, and so he helps out with all of our airboat operations up there, including like expeditions, like the expedition for the Kissimmee River documentary. He helped with logistics and all that was necessary to make that a success, such that everyone could get educated on the importance of all this restoration. So he can do a lot of stuff, fire break construction and maintenance, mechanical treatments to control woody vegetation, boundary fence construction, public use infrastructure maintenance, and of course the wetland restoration that he's known for. Listen, look at the guy. I mean, he's a outdoorsman through and through and through. He's a longstanding member of the Kissimmee River Valleys Sports Association. He's a proud father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. Pretty cool, right? When you can take your great-grandkids out into the wild and show them what's going on. He would say he's living the dream with his job and what he does and what he loves to do. So he's one of those guys that when he says, "I love my job," he means it. So thank you, Vince, for your 25 years and taking care of the land for the Water Management District. All right. We have a 35-year service award, 35 years. For Peter Farrell, he's a heavy equipment operator in currently the Fort Lauderdale Field Station. So Peter came to us 35 years ago and he went straight into tree maintenance, right? And so he's basically what Peter does for us is make sure that our canals keep flowing, right? And if our canals don't flow, we're in big trouble. And so it's like a critical piece of what has to happen for us to actually get our job done and to complete our mission. So he started in the tree program. He's one of those that will climb the trees and take care of the limbs and make sure none of these things end up in our canals through our tree maintenance program. And then on top of that, he became a heavy equipment operator so he could operate the towboats and get all this debris out of our canals. And if you know anything about debris management in canals, it is a big job. So much debris needs to be pulled out of our canals. And Pete is there day after day making sure we take care of that, whether it's the trees that'll fall in or the stuff that's already fallen in. He's also trained as a pump station operator, so he's been through the hurricanes, right? He even went through Hurricane Andrew and the response to Hurricane Andrew. And so he's one of those that's ready, right on the job, making sure we get our system back to normal so we can get our water management done. He has, I'm told here, he has removed enough debris to fill the field at Gillette Stadium football field. To fill the field. Now, where's Gillette? What is Gillette Stadium? That is the home of the beloved New England Patriots. Not so beloved by Atlanta Falcons fans, which is what I am. That was a terrible Super Bowl. Awful, awful Super Bowl. Anyway, enough about football. So, New England Patriots. So anyway, I support his effort to cover the New England Patriots football field with debris. All right. So anyway, let's get back to debris. So when you're out there in the field and you're taking care of these canals, you meet all of our neighbors. We have a lot of neighbors at the South Florida Water Management District up and down our canals, particularly in Broward County. And I am told that he is known by a lot of our neighbors who see him out there taking care of this work. And he's a great face. And for a public agency, having a familiar face, you know your neighbor, that's a great service to our agency and to us having great interactions with the people that we neighbor. So he's doing a great job. Our canals are flowing. Pete, thank you for your 35 years of service. All right. One more 35-year service award, Mr. Chair. So, hold on. All right. 35-year service award for Richard James. He's a principal scientist in our Applied Sciences Bureau. Now, Dr. Tom James came to us. He has a PhD in ecology from the University of Georgia. Wait a minute, Jennifer, you made me say, doing the Patriots, now you're making me say University of Georgia. All right, so as a Georgia Tech football fan, that's tough for me, but at least I'm not a Florida State or FSU fan or Florida fan, so it's a good season. Anyway, enough about football. So, anyway, Dr. Tom James. Tom is a scientist. He's been a scientist in our water program since the day he got here 35 years ago. Started as a tech, became a senior supervising lead and principal scientist for the Water Management District, and he spent 28 years of those 35 years in Lake Okeechobee doing water quality models, developing nutrient budgets, and analyzing water quality trends. He actually helped DEP establish their restoration goal for phosphorus for Lake Okeechobee, which we measure every single year and report on every single year. It's an incredible thing that was able to be established in rule. But Tom he is a scientist, man. 57 publications in the peer-reviewed literature, given presentations at more than 45 conferences. He's served as the lead editor in chapters of the SFER since 2008. He is the district's editor of manuscripts for the Ecological Engineering Journal's Everglades STA's special edition. He's the associate editor for the Journal of Lake and Reservoir Management from 1996 to 2024, and now the editor-in-chief of that journal. He's received numerous honors and recognitions, including the Computer World Smithsonian Laureate. So, I mean, he's been a scientist through and through and through, and you can tell from the picture he loves what he does. But what he just completed was the Restoration Strategies Science Plan. And that is like the tomb of science for wetland treatment systems, and multi-million-dollar plan that he was the coordinator for. So, so he made all that happen, and now we've got basically what's what about wetland treatment systems, and he is what's what about wetland treatment systems when it comes to that scientific knowledge. And right now he's packaging it all up so we have a system that everybody can access easily and take that knowledge and spread it across the world, if you will, because there's no place like it. And he was responsible for that. So here we have this epic scientist, basically world-renowned, helping right here at the Water Management District, helping us with Lake Okeechobee and our stormwater treatment areas. And we absolutely appreciate what he's done for us for 35 years. Thank you, Tom.
Well, thanks very much for that, Drew. We're going to move now to item number 4, which is agenda revisions, if there are any. Molly, do you have any agenda revisions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Item number 22 was removed.
Thanks. We'll go to item number 5, which is abstentions by board members. I'm going to poll the board to see if you have any abstentions, and I'll start with you, Mr. Butler.
I have none, Mr. Chair.
I have none. Colonel Roman?
I have none.
Mr. Hurley?
I have none.
Thanks. Mr. Martinez?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Spotswood?
I have none. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thanks very much. And now we'll move to the approval of the minutes of the November 13th, 2025 meeting. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? If not, can I have a motion to approve them?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? I'm hearing none. We'll call that question. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Thanks very much. That passes unanimously. And we'll go now to the Executive Director's Report with Mr. Bartlett.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yesterday was a big day because the governor proposed his Florida First budget, which very much kept in with his tradition of advancing Everglades restoration for the people of Florida. So that budget request basically consisted of $681 million for the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, and basically fully funded the EAA reservoir and all components of the EAA reservoir. So $681 million, that's epic amount of money. $50 million for the underground storage north of Lake Okeechobee, $79 million for the Northern Everglades and Estuaries Protection Program, $100 million for the Lower Kissimmee Basin Stormwater Treatment Area, and there's some funding for land management and dispersed water management as well. But the new item in his budget request was $100 million for the South Florida Water Management District operation and maintenance of Everglades restoration projects, right? We have a lot of projects coming online. They need to be continued to operate and maintain in order to get the benefits of good water quality in the right amount in the Everglades. And so this is a natural transition. And the reason this is a new sort of concept is we know that since 1991, there's been 20 different laws passed in the state of Florida that directed the district to do ecosystem restoration work, particularly for the Everglades in South Florida. At that same time period, there were restrictions put on our ability to generate local revenues. So here we are in a situation where we have an aging flood control system and a lot of new projects coming online. And so O&M is becoming critically important. And so in response to that, bringing those state dollars in for the O&M of these restoration projects that were a part of those laws passed allows us to free up some of that ad valorem dollars that we had been using for that to then reinvest in our flood control system, which is aging and out of date. And so it kind of rights the ship, balances the books so that we can take care of all of our missions, right? Ecosystem restoration, flood control, and water supply for the future of South Florida. So that's the new item in there that we'll be tracking and engaging the legislature on. But again, over $800 million for ecosystem restoration. Pretty remarkable budget. That's just, I'm telling you, 8 years ago, that was unheard of. So, very exciting. And that really lines up with our strategic plan, which, we've updated this year. It's on our consent agenda for your approval. I appreciate everyone's feedback on that from the public and the board members to make sure we get that aligned with our mission, which is ecosystem restoration, water supply, flood control, and good governance, so that we can basically take care of South Florida for the next 5 years with this updated strategic plan. So that's on consent. You also have the 2026 tentative board dates. I talked about it last time. We got some good feedback from you. So we have a different schedule for you there. The one change, the January 22nd board meeting, I've surveyed the divisions. We don't really have a lot of items that need approval at that time, so we're going to do a lunch and learn and talk about a recent hot topic, which might be operations and maintenance of our infrastructure on that January 22nd lunch and learn. The other thing that I've heard a lot of feedback from the public on lately that we have assigned a strike team for is the plan for low lake levels on Lake Okeechobee, right? And there's lots of opportunities for the ecosystem when that lake level gets low. So I've put together an action team led by Rich Virgil that looks at basic categories like let's have an aggressive burn plan, let's have an aggressive plantings plan, let's have an aggressive muck management plan. Let's make sure that if the lake gets to that low lake level, we have everything lined up to strike to actually do some good work on Lake Okeechobee. Another part of that is, if we happen to get into water supply shortage situations, to have a plan for that, to make sure that we can continue to serve our counties and our communities with water supply even when the lake gets really low, right? So that plan is in place. I'll report on you as we start to get action items and some actionable things so you can know exactly what we're planning. And then, of course, today marks the 25th anniversary of SERP. December 11, 2000 was when it was signed. On discussion, I'll give a presentation about that anniversary. We have a short video commemorating the anniversary, and we'll also have cake commemorating the anniversary. And so as soon as the board meeting adjourns, I invite everyone here who's interested to have cake. We'll wheel it in and cut cake together to celebrate this 25th anniversary. That's all I got for you, Mr. Chair.
It's quite a bit. Thanks. Anyone have any comments or questions for the executive director? Okay. We're going to move now to our public comment period. This period is for general comments not related to agenda items. Public comment on consent agenda item is item 11 on the agenda, and public comment for the discussion and agenda item will be heard during the public comment period now, I guess. Is that correct? Okay. So I think I didn't say that very eloquently, but we're not having a second public comment period, so you can pretty much talk about anything you want except for consent agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And go ahead.
The public did have an opportunity to provide written comments prior to this meeting, and we did not receive any e-comment. We'll start with Brad Widerock. Followed by Dana Widerock. He doesn't appear to be in the room, so we'll continue with Gil Smart.
Morning, governing board members. My name's Gil Smart. I'm policy director with Friends of the Everglades, founded in 1969 by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and based in Stewart. Late last year, when the Army Corps announced they'd be implementing recovery mode for Lake Okeechobee, we objected because of the harm posed to the St. Lucie River, and we asked that the lake be allowed to decline naturally as we entered the dry season. A year later, and here was Colonel Bowman on last Friday's Lake O media call saying that worst case scenario, without any water conservation measures, the lake could fall to 9.5 feet this winter. It probably won't, but the clear takeaway is that had we been more conservative, there might be more water in the lake now ahead of the dry months, enough for both flows to the Caloosahatchee and water supply. But it looks now that we're going to have to argue over who gets what. Flows to the Caloosahatchee are low enough to cause damage, and there's an excellent case to be made that beneficial releases to the Caloosahatchee should be increased now while there's still water in the lake. But zoom out and see the broader picture, that even with all the progress being made, here we are still arguing over who should take the pain, whether an estuary must suffer so the sugarcane industry will not. Last time I came before you, I spoke of how we ought to be wary of declaring mission accomplished on Everglades restoration. That makes me a little wary of today's discussion agenda item, which looks a bit like a victory lap. But I simply want to reiterate what I said last time I was here. Even when SERP is completed, our work will not be and cannot be finished. SERP was designed to restore the Everglades to the healthiest condition possible, given what we knew and what was politically feasible in the late 1990s. It was visionary, but it was also constrained. The system it sought to repair has continued to change. Florida's population went from 16 million in 2000 to 23 million today. Seas have risen, water demand has increased, land has been developed, the climate has shifted. The challenges facing the Everglades today are not identical to those anticipated 25 years ago. That means SERP is the foundation, but cannot be the ceiling of restoration. For even after every reservoir is complete, every STA finished, and every restoration project done, we will still face work that only long-term stewardship can address, and ultimately we need continued political will. You've heard me talk about the plan to rescue the River of Grass by acquiring significantly more land for water storage and treatment south of Lake O. This or something like it is and must be the next phase of restoration. There must be a next phase. Completing SERP is like finishing the scaffolding of a great cathedral. It gives us the architecture, the structure, the shape of a restored ecosystem, but it does not complete the work of protection, care, and renewal that must continue for generations. And that is our charge, not to simply finish SERP, but to protect the Everglades after SERP, to pass on a vibrant, resilient, living landscape, not a project that ended, but an ecosystem that thrives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Next, we'll hear from Daniel DeLisi, followed by Jake Foytik.
For the record, Dan DeLisi, I'm here on behalf of Lee County, but let me take that hat off for a moment and just say thank you, Mr. Butler, for coming to the County Coalition meeting last week. I'd encourage other board members to come as well. It's just a fantastic meeting, 11 commissioners, 11 counties, all within this district, here to support you. So now, here on behalf of Lee County. So this board has not really had the, I'll say pleasure in quotes, of presiding over this district when the system is drying out. It gets a little bit more complicated at this point in time. The flow to the Caloosahatchee at this point in time from S79 is hovering around 350 CFS. That's below our MFL. The last few days it's been a little bit higher, but it's still well below the optimal range of 750 CFS, which is what we need and what we're here today asking for. Once again, the Caloosahatchee is in the position of being starved of freshwater flow long before any other user is being asked to conserve it all. I'm a resident of West Palm Beach, and I can water my lawn at will. It just doesn't, there are no restrictions in place, but yet the Caloosahatchee is being asked to deprive its estuary of freshwater flow. On the flip side, Lee County has year-round water restrictions. They're limited to 2 days a week now, and in February they'll go down to 1 day a week. So they tighten their belts because it's meaningful to them, because they understand the impact, and yet other users around the system are not being asked to do so. It's only the Caloosahatchee that faces harm. You know, the difference between what we're getting now and what we're asking for barely moves the needle. I mean, look, if the system's drying out and it's going to dry out, it's going to happen with or without these flows to the Caloosahatchee. The flows to the Caloosahatchee aren't going to prevent going into water shortage if that's what the weather is going to bring us to. Maybe we'll save a few days. Maybe we'll get to water shortage a couple days earlier. Does that offset the harm that we're giving to the Caloosahatchee in the next several months? And I don't think it does. This administration came in because you know, the governor, the administration said that the prior district just wasn't managing the system the right way. You all remember that very clearly. I've been around for a while. I remember it very clearly. So I'm here asking you to be the difference that you said you were going to be when you came in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. DeLisi. Next, we'll hear from Jake Foytik, followed by Ben Mahler.
Good morning. Jake Foytik with the Florida Farm Bureau Federation. Wow, 25 years of SERP. Just want to take a moment to congratulate you guys and all the stakeholders involved on that anniversary. Truth be told, I'm here for the cake, and in this video that Drew's going to show, where I'm sure there's going to be some sweet explosions and aerial photography. No, SERP, amazing accomplishment with the SERP anniversary. You know, Farm Bureau and us Florida farmers, we were proud to join other stakeholders in 2000 when SERP was passed and signed, and we have and continue to advocate for SERP in Tallahassee and Washington, and we're proud to do that. Moving on quickly to Lake Okeechobee operations. As everybody's aware, the lake's critical water supply source for the entire lower East Coast, including lakeside communities and agriculture. For us, however, we still have concerns that remain regarding increased probability of water shortage with current conditions and La Nina. That being said, we urge the district, we urge you guys to continue to manage lake releases in a manner that ensures that the water supply needs of existing legal users are not put in jeopardy as we navigate this dry season moving forward. With that, thank you guys. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Foytik. Next, we'll hear from Ben Mahler, followed by Ben Olson.
Good morning, Ben Mailer. I live in Martin County. I'm with UWF Newton Cook. I run the Wounded Warrior Hunt on the STA property, and I want to thank you guys for letting us do that. It's a big deal. These guys sometimes don't get out of their house much, and it's very special to me and the guys that run it with me. But I'm not here to talk about that. I predominantly have hunted Lake O for about 30 years, longer than SERP has been around. I've watched that lake decline every year to this year being the worst ever I've seen it. We've had a couple of years, the year after, 2 years after the drought, the lake started to come back. It looked like it did in the beginning. I'm happy to hear that we're gonna do something when this happens, which hopefully it does. I know it's bad for some parts of the ecology, but you know, this water comes from the north, and you guys have a big parcel of land up on the Kissimmee that's dry, and we control that structure, right? I mean, why is that section all the way, the whole PUA is dry? I hunt up there a lot, and 2 years ago we had a very big rain event, but I will say 2 years ago, the environmental side of that was tremendous. There was a tremendous amount of life in that marsh. It's nothing there now. I mean, I don't know, you know, the politics and Army Corps and how all of this water gets moved around, but I deal with the environmental side of it, and I don't think you guys look at that side too much. I think this is all just about moving water, and we talk about parts per million of phosphate and nitrogen, but this is a funnel, and it goes to Lake O. Lake O's been destroyed. And we need to figure out a way. We spend $600 million, we're talking about all these hundreds of millions. You guys need to put some pressure on FWC, get the mechanical harvesters back. When I first started hunting that lake, there was big mechanical harvesters on Harney Pond Canal. They went away, we sprayed that lake to death. There's nothing but muck left. It's a disaster. It really is, and it's sad. My kids, I've said this before, I've been to these meetings a bunch. I stopped coming because I got frustrated with it. My kids are 20, in their low 20s. 22 is my oldest son. It's sad. When he was 5 years old, he saw that lake, and it's best he'll probably see it in his life unless we do something. And I just can't sit around and let this natural, beautiful lake get destroyed anymore. It's the second largest lake in the United States. Okay, not in North America, but in the United States. We need to start treating this thing a little bit better. I mean, these STAs are great, treating water, this and that, but you have an opportunity to grow some hydrilla back in this lake, clean it up. It's dirty, it's a mess. We need to get this ecology set back to where at least somewhat what it was before we started draining everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mailer. Next, we'll hear from Ben Olson, followed by Caitlin Newcamp.
Good morning, Governing Board, Executive Director Bartlett, and staff. As usual, I am rambling about WERP and the Feeder Canal Basin Water Quality Project, but nothing negative today. I just wanted to say I appreciate staff. Staff ultimately had to cancel last week's modeling meeting with the landowners inside of the West Feeder Basin footprint, and while I was disappointed to hear it, staff were on the phone with my neighbors and me immediately to explain why. I understand the need to slow things down sometimes, and frankly, I don't object to that. Getting the supplemental project to work right is far more important than just pushing forward. In addition, I was going to say my sunshine request I put in a few months ago was delayed. I was planning on stating that staff, just like the modeling meeting, got with me to explain why and that I fully understand. But because your staff are so effective, they have removed my ability to politely complain to you today, and I'm happy to say that the sunshine request was fulfilled yesterday. I'm very much looking forward to going through what was provided. There are a lot of questions I have about all of this, and I'm trying to find the answers to it. And hopefully this sunshine request answers more than it creates. Staff, my neighbors, and I have been coordinating to get the modeling meeting rescheduled, and we're aiming for January right now, early January. Again, as I've said many times before, South Florida Water Management District staff have been the only state or federal agency staffers I've engaged with throughout the 3 years of me dealing with WERP, who have actively engaged us and in many circumstances proactively reached out to head off issues before they came about. So thank you to all the staff. Thank you to the governing board members. I appreciate your diligence and willingness to work with us. And one last thing I got to say, it's nice to come in under time this month. Since I ran out of time in October, I wanted to personally thank Executive Director Bartlett for putting up with what seemed like it could have been a slight. It certainly wasn't meant as one, sir. I normally try to put 700 words into 3 minutes, and I'm usually pretty successful, but that time I had to start cutting as I went. So I apologize, and I appreciate every time you take the time to speak with me. I do hope you all have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to seeing what the next year brings us. I'm not going to waste time on another public comment. I'm very quickly going to say congratulations on 25 years of SERP. As Mr. Butler said last year, my neighbors and I are involved with this for the rest of our lives, so I'm looking forward to working with all of you for the next 25. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Next, we'll hear from Caitlin Newcamp, followed by Newton Cook.
Good morning, Chair and Governing Board members. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Caitlin Newcamp, and on behalf of Audubon, Florida, I'd like to first offer our comments on the current Caloosahatchee flow targets. First, we urge the board to consider increasing releases up to 750 CFS at the S79, like Dan just mentioned, consistent with the Recover Ecological Envelope, which identifies 750 to 2100 CFS as the range necessary to support a healthy estuary. Lake O currently sits over 15 inches above the water supply management line, and the December modeling projections continue to indicate a low likelihood of ever reaching that line during this dry season. Even if conditions were to change, any intersection with the water supply management line would not occur until April or May, meaning the system would be approaching the onset of the wet season. And in those circumstances, meaningful water use restrictions would be unlikely. We know from the science and experience that recovery for the Caloosahatchee from significant harm can take years, and so we just urge you to reduce the estuary. In other words, reducing the estuary to the MFL to guard against a remote water supply scenario is a harmful overreaction. And the Caloosahatchee is a major ecological and economic resource, and restoration requires that we quite literally crack the gate enough to keep it healthy. So for these reasons, we recommend increasing releases towards 750. And I know I am probably going to run out of time, but as the Everglades Policy Associate, I obviously want to comment on the 25th anniversary of SERP. This is super important, and it's a reason to celebrate and step back and look at all we've done. We want to extend our deep appreciation to the district's leadership for the many partners who have carried this vision forward over a quarter century. SERP is an extraordinary national commitment, and today's data clearly show that the investments are really paying off. The progress that will be highlighted, the C43 and the C44 moving online, BBCW and Picayune Strand completing soon, and the EAA Reservoir accelerating, are not just project-by-project successes. These milestones are translating into ecological outcomes. More water flowing south, improved salinity in Florida Bay, and meaningful reductions in the harmful discharges. That is exactly what SERP was designed to achieve. So looking ahead, Audubon encourages the district to stay the course on the science, the monitoring, and the adaptive management that makes SERP work. As restoration accelerates, we just want to emphasize it's critical that we maintain momentum on water quality and continue to fully fund operations and maintenance and focus on resilience going forward. So we just want to thank you for your commitment, and we look forward to working with you in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. We'll hear next from Newton Cook, followed by Matt DePaulis.
Hi, Newton Cook, United Waterfowlers of Florida. It's always interesting when an little old duck hunter follows the Audubon eager young lady, and God bless her. Audubon does a lot of good work, and there's a long story about how we got duck hunting on STAs because Audubon raised their hand in a RAC meeting. The duck hunting's doing pretty good across the district. As always, it's hit and miss, but a lot of hits this year. The STAs, despite the vegetation, cattails are the people reporting that they wouldn't fight their way to open water. They're finding birds, and it's very much appreciated. The staff did work to help knock down some, don't use the word trails, but places where we could access open water. We have 2 Wounded Warrior hunts coming in January and a big youth hunt. These are very complex exercises with hundreds of people involved, and the district just makes it possible. I mean, you can stand in the way or you can help, and you've always helped, and it's very much appreciated. C-44 is operating first year, and on a no, we have quotas, but there's no tech station. And this is kind of an experiment. If this works out well, we'll have other small venues where we can put 5, 6, 7 permits to fit the venue and put that in the program so the public could access some of the smaller properties across everything from Orlando to the Keys. Now, not so positive. Lake O, as you've already heard, is in great shape if it did not have the basic fundamental problems it has, which is the muck in the bottom. And today, because we have no great inflow and the levels are low, and no storm, so it's not stirred up. I still like to see that committee. I went to the 16 county meeting the other day. District made a great presentation, but I'm looking up there with the lake low, and I see this big truck and bulldozer theoretically removing muck from the bottom of the lake. You know when that picture was made? Yes, 20 years ago. That picture is 20 years old. I don't want to see that picture anymore. I want to see one from this week or next week. Why are we waiting 20 years and we got the opportunity and we don't have any trucks out there and bulldozers getting the muck off the lake bottom? How many burns have we had? Not a lot. This afternoon, I'll say something about spraying. Not a pretty picture. Thank you.
Mr. Cook, did you want to comment on SERP? Mr. Cook? On SERP, we're hearing comments on SERP during this public comment period. There will not be another public comment period.
Sorry, please give me just a minute. I stood, I think it was here, but here, in 2002 for the first time. And I was speaking for the tremendous list of projects that this district was taking on to do. The little did we know, 25 years later, we'd be standing here talking about some of them still 4 or 5 years away. But that's not all that negative, because this project is one of the, nothing ever happened like this in the world. I mean, ever, anywhere. And with the politics and the bureaucracies that you have to deal with, not you, but people who are long gone that I used to stand up for, we've got a long ways to go. I'm trying to get there with you. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of criticism. But those people just don't understand the complications and the difficulties the district has overcome to get these projects running. And we, as the public who go in and enjoy close to 1 million acres, if you include the lakes, we appreciate it. And we appreciate the fact that we have access to areas despite the contract work, despite the problems. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Next, we'll hear from Matt DePaulis, followed by Michael Murray.
Governing Board, Matt DePaulis, the Environmental Policy Director for the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. Happy to be here today celebrating 25 years of SERP. That's an incredible milestone, and the accomplishments that we've met along the way with this project are really astounding, and I can't wait to see what's going to come down the pike in the future as we move forward in restoration. The problem with successful restoration efforts is once you start to see achievements come with them, now you have something that you need to protect. And as we're seeing in the Caloosahatchee Estuary right now, the progress that we have been making over the last years is now at risk of being lost. We're drying up over in the estuary. You've heard this from other comments today. We're not getting the water we need from the lake. I know many of you are pretty familiar with this situation at this point, but we have that 750 cubic feet per second limit that we need to be within the optimal flow. Today we are 47 days below that that optimal envelope. We're 47 days of harming the estuary, and we have some pretty significant severe days where we've been below that MFL. We're aiming for that 350 CFS, cubic feet per second, being released at S79. That's well below the 457 cubic feet per second that is required by the MFL. And we're feeling the impacts in the estuary. And I just want to remind everyone, I know you're well aware, but these harm designations, and that difference between that 457 number, that drops the harm that the estuary is feeling from about a 1 to 2 year recovery down to about a 5-year recovery. So the impacts that we're feeling today aren't necessarily going to show up in the next couple months. This is going to be years and years of missed fishing opportunities because generational level impacts to the fisheries are being felt. This is lost tape grass that's going to take years and years to come back. And right now, as we're starting to see gains in the upper estuary where tape grass is growing in places that it wasn't 5 years ago, we're going out and surveying areas and seeing brand new shoots coming up of this incredibly important keystone indicator species in the upper estuary that millions of dollars has been spent restoring. Countless man hours has been out there in the water, and hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars has been invested in restoring these projects. We are in a situation where we run the risk of losing all that. And when we're talking about this at a place where the lake is still high enough that we don't need to be seeing these cutoffs right now, we don't need to be having these difficult conversations, let's get to a point where we're having these conversations about water cutbacks to the environment and other stakeholders when we need to be having them, because it does us no good to starve the estuary for 5 months, to cause this devastation, and then in April or May to say, well, we do have some water, so let's give you the releases you need now. Well, at that point, it'll be too late, and it's not going to be me standing up here in April saying we're feeling the impacts. It's going to be fishers and other people who rely on the economy of that area coming to you in 2 or 3 years saying, why has the economy failed, and why is the estuary in the position where it is, and how do we get it back? Well, at that point, it's going to be a huge recovery process. So I just ask that we make the decisions now to replenish the water that we need
Please
in the
wrap up your
estuary. Let's
comments.
restore those flows, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. DePaulis. Next, we'll hear from Michael Murray, followed by Mark Perry.
Good morning. My name is Michael Murray. I'm a Martin County resident, coming to you today just as an outdoorsman, a fisherman, and a hunter. And I apologize, I have no notes to speak of. This is the first one of these meetings I've been to, and I feel, if I just keep my mouth shut, nothing will ever be heard. So, boy, I sat back there this morning and heard all these accolades for these people that, 35 years of service, and that's great and all, but one stuck out, and again, I don't want to disparage the guy, I don't know the guy, but as a person, much like Mr. Mailer, that's been hunting Lake Okeechobee since the early 90s, I've watched its death. Not that it's in bad shape, it's dead. When you come out of Kissimmee River and you hang a right, this big area called Cody's Cove, they used to be topped out hydrilla with tens of thousands of coots, waterfowl, ducks, people fishing, people catching specks or crappies, bass fishing, so on. It is just brown water now. And again, I have a degree in mechanical engineering. I'm not a scientist, but I have to put the correlation to the widespread spraying to the fact that there is not a stitch of live growth there anymore. And neither is there in any of the other places all around Lake Okeechobee that I used to, this time of year, just before duck season opened, one of my favorite things with my kids to do, and my kids are the same age as Ben's, they're friends, was to ride the lake and look for spots and, ride around and try to find spots to hunt. Well, there's none. It's gone. I'm sure you all saw the report that Lake Okeechobee is one of the dirtiest lakes in the United States, which, again, I know that's kind of a clickbait type of thing, but sure is embarrassing to have that moniker, when that thing used to be a vibrant, living ecology. That was an amazing thing, and I felt fortunate to be less than an hour away from. So I don't want to spend a bunch of time again. I just wanted to come up here and make my, grievances known. There are some encouraging things, the opportunity to scrape and the opportunity to do burns. I'd like to think that those are not just idle things that are being said to kind of push the ball down the road, but I just want to be a part of it, and I guess thank you for what you're trying to do. I'd love to see more access to, the STAs. I mean, as a taxpayer, we have public land that we're only allowed to access a small fraction to. And I understand that, you know, some people are not the best stewards of the environment. We need to maybe get some educational programs to make more people aware, you know, things like pertaining to duck hunting, leaving your shells and leaving trash and things like that. But, you know, maybe that's something we can all work on in the future. But anyway, thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Next, we'll hear from Mark Perry, followed by Tom Conboy.
Morning, Governing Board. Chair Mark Perry, Florida Oceanographic. It's great that we are celebrating that 25 years. A lot of us have been since then, back then when it was originally signed, but even before that when the restudy was being done in 95, and we were all anxious to kind of get things going to try to restore the America's Everglades. And it did happen. We started to sign. We had 68 components projects. We had $7.8 billion projected as budget. Now, of course, it's increased quite a bit. But we began to work on those projects. And of course, through the integrated delivery schedule, we started to figure out how we can get those projects done in a timely fashion with our federal partners. And that is the appropriations at those top lines is trying to get both of those lined up so that we can year to year, every 2 years, get the WRDA bill going, get the appropriations done so we can get projects moving. That's been a challenge over these last 25 years, of course, and but we have made accomplishments, and I think even with the framework that's been put forward for the MOU, MOA that was just done with the state, we're going to accelerate some of these ideas and projects. You get updates in your agenda every month, and I encourage you to read them from the core updates on the projects. But this publication you put out was really good. It's about since 2019. We had over 78 different component projects and things that have been done, started, and completed. I think this is an excellent publication, and it proves that Everglades restoration is working, and you ought to continue to promote that and do that. But you know, it gets down to operations too. I mean, and maintenance, and as Drew brought up earlier, you know, maintenance and operations of all these projects is going to be constantly ongoing battle and difficulty. And I encourage you, I mean, as we operate even the LACO schedule and try to get significant water flows in the directions they need to while maintaining the lake in healthy condition, that's a critical project. And it's kind of an example of the operational projects for each water control plan for each of these projects needs to be really maintained and operated so that we can continue to do that. We need to kind of be diligent. We can't let our foot off the gas, so to say. This is time to celebrate this milestone, but let's not let our foot off the gas and work to do that. We're having a Everglades Coalition Conference coming up this January in Naples, 28th through the 30th. I encourage everybody, the districts participating on panels and different things. It's a great thing to bring 450 folks together, all the NGOs, all the agencies, groups. We have speakers. It's going to be great. Encourage you to participate again this year. And Naples was in year 2000 when we had it over there at the beginning of SERP. So thanks for all your diligence in this. It's a challenge every year, every month. You all get together, but this governing board came together, and I appreciate you having workshops on this too. When you first came together in 2019, remember you started having workshops, and I'd encourage us to have more of those kind of workshop sessions so that we continue to bring the science together and learn about things. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Next, we'll hear from Tom Conboy, followed by Nyla Pipes, whose hand is raised on Zoom.
Honorable Governing Board members, my name is Tom Conboy. I'm the Principal Engineer of South Florida Engineering and Consulting. I had the honor of being able to start here fresh out of college as this project began, the 25 years of SERP. And I can't tell you the energy levels that were around at that time. It was dubbed the largest restoration project in the world. And it pulled scientists from all over the world here to this little location. And many of the solutions in SERP had never been put together on this scale before. So the bridging science and engineering was really, really cool. And it's a space that you don't get to work in engineering very often. And I found that that's the space that I really like. And I just want to dovetail, ecology, science, and technology contract is also on the consent agenda. And, you know, that's a space that's really powerful for this organization. And that's a space where this organization really shines. So thank you for staying the course with SERP. I can't tell you how incredible it's been to have this as my kind of my career project, if you will. Not that I've been the lead of it or taking credit for it, but I've been able to be a part of it. And it's been very inspirational, and I've really enjoyed it. And it's a great effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conboy. And now, before we move over to our Zoom participants, we did get another public comment card from someone here in the room, and we'll hear from Shannon Estenos.
Boy, do I know how to make an entrance, like right at the last minute. My goodness. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the record, I'm Shannon Estenos, and I'm today representing the Everglades Foundation. To my colleagues watching online and in the room, and to you, Mr. Chairman and the board, thank you so much for carving out time today to mark an extraordinary milestone in an extraordinary program. SERP has always been remarkable for its scope, its ambition, its continual political saliency, and now its longevity. And I'm sure many of us who were there leading up to SERP, we're all sort of reminiscing now about those heady years. But the memory that I've been focused on for the last couple of days actually is from immediately after authorization. There was a task force meeting, and it may have been the first task force meeting after authorization. I'm not quite sure. But for the first and last time in my career, I actually stood at the podium at that meeting and recited a few lines of poetry, as cringy as that sounds. And I'm going to do it again. It's a famous poem by Ella Wheeler Wilcox, and it goes, I'm sure many of you know it, it's one ship sails east and the other sails west, on the selfsame winds the blow. It's the set of the sails and not the gales that tells the way to go. And I read it 25 years ago because I think I was coming to terms with the overwhelming realization that Congress had given us what we asked for. They gave us a ship, but it was going to be up to us, and it was going to be a matter of thousands of decisions made by hundreds of decision makers for many years that would determine whether the voyage was successful or not. And I hung those lines up in my office for many years to remind myself of that responsibility. And I'll tell you, the first 10 years, every sailing day felt like a hurricane, like we were sailing through stormy weather. But 25 years in, and the ship is not only sailing, it is under full sail. We are moving faster than we've ever moved. Bipartisan support is as strong as it has ever been. Funding levels are setting records continuously. The public is on board as strongly as it has ever been. And we should all feel proud of that. And I'll close by saying that, as you all know, at moments like this, little emotional moments like this, I like to think about what Nathaniel Reed might say to us if he were here. We can never be sure. I do think he would give us a baritone bravo, and he would congratulate us, but he would also remind us that there is time and distance between us and our goal, and that we have to stay at the wheel, at the rudder, at the ropes, at the sails, because there are still ways for our mission to be blown off course, and there will be difficult weather ahead. And you, the folks who come after you, everyone who has the privilege of touching this program needs to stay at the ready and race toward the horizon. The Everglades Foundation will always be with you. So congratulations to everyone, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Estenos. Next, we'll move over to our virtual participants with Nyla Pipes.
Sound check?
We hear you.
Fantastic. Nyla Pipes, One Florida Foundation. First and foremost, congratulations to everyone who has been involved in SERP, and what a momentous journey it has been. But I do say, you know, Shannon's last reminder that perhaps may have come from Mr. Nathaniel Reed is true. We've got a long way to go, and so much to protect as we go along, which is what I want to speak about today. While I understand and appreciate the concerns of the Caloosahatchee stakeholders, I want to remind everyone that not only do we have problems when the lake is high for Lake Okeechobee, but we have problems when the lake gets too low. We've worked so hard to lower the lake for recovery purposes, according to LOSUM. And we've gotten there. We've seen submerged aquatic vegetation recovery begin. We know that it is good for the lake to remain low a little bit longer. But the key word when we're talking about recovery and submerged aquatic vegetation is the submerged part. Lake Okeechobee, when it gets to a certain point, it can get low really fast because the number one way that we lose water off of the lake is evaporation. I mean, when you get to 11 feet, it's not hard to imagine getting to 9 feet very, very quickly. And we're in trouble before we've put those things in place to protect us. So while I understand and appreciate that the Caloosahatchee has its own environmental needs, I remind us that so does Lake Okeechobee. I remind us that we talked about this when we decided to go this direction with LOSUM, with this long recovery period that was necessary for the lake. Many times I've come before you and talked about when a low lake level becomes concerning. It's not the first year. It's not when we get into the, 12, 12 and a half, 11. It's the second year. And that's because of the way the lake works with our environment and with our weather patterns. We all know that we're in a La Nina. We all know that we can't necessarily see all the way forward to April. We think we know. We think we know what's going to happen. But once we send water out of Lake Okeechobee, you can't recover it. So just keep that in mind as we move forward, as we continue to, whether we like it or not, argue about where to put the water. We're in this. We decided that this is the way to go with LOSUM. It's just really incredibly important to continue to protect the progress we've had on Lake Okeechobee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pipes. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment.
Thanks, Molly. Thank you all very much for your comments. We'll move now to board comment, and Mr. Butler, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see. To begin with, I got some thank yous. Missed it at the last meeting, but I got a big thank you to University of Florida, IFAS, Institute of Food and Animal Sciences, their extension staff, and to Archibald Buck Island Ranch. Over the last couple of months, they've put on a couple seminars on land management. Actually, both of them have been in the Okeechobee Highlands County area, but they've brought experts in, and district has sent some staff, but a lot of government entities sent staff that have land resources, that manage land, and put on some great presentations. In fact, I think had some great panelists. Matt Pierce was one of the panelists. I think we had Dale Carlton and had some others, and really discussed cattle and the importance of cattle as a tool in land management. So I thank you to IFAS and Archibald for putting that on. Mr. DeLisi referenced County Coalition. Again, I encourage everybody. It's a great opportunity. If you can't attend in person, they hold the meetings there in Okeechobee. But you can go to the Okeechobee County website, County Commissioner website, and find those historical meetings. It's listed as Lake County, but it's not Lake County. It's abbreviated. Dan, y'all got to work on that. Y'all need an acronym for that group. Lake County Coalition for Responsible Management of Lake Okeechobee and the Caloosahatchee and St. Lucie Estuaries. That's a long lot to say. But it is it's a great resource. I enjoy listening. I say I enjoy. I find value in listening to the commissioners, the perspectives they bring from their communities. I encourage you. And it was had a good spirited discussion this go around. Of course, you can imagine with the dry season flows we're going into, or the dry season we're coming out of, and low Lake Okeechobee levels. We had some good discussions from all around. I had a couple of commenters. Mr. Wyrock was here. I talked to him before the meeting. He had to step out. But when we're talking, we're coming out of I guess the numbers say we had an average rainfall year, but we were short of rainfall in certain areas. in particular the middle part of the system. And as we look at headwaters, increment 1, hopefully, and I know staff's doing it, but hopefully we're doing a Monday morning quarterback, and we'll do a Monday morning quarterback of how this season went with increment 1 in a dry season. You know, it's kind of interesting to see flows out of Kissimmee, Cypress, and Hatchinaha. I think they got up to 3,000 or 3,500 CFS at one point, but it didn't last long. I mean, it was there and gone. And, you know, it'd be nice now that we're down to 300 CFS already here at the beginning of December into the Kissimmee River. It'd be nice to have that water. Again, it's Monday morning quarterback, but staff has followed the increment 1 plan. And this is an experiment. I realize that. And so hopefully we'll look at how this experiment worked as they begin to craft the final plan for headwaters. But looking for opportunity for more consistent flows, more consistent management on Lake Kissimmee. Of course, Mother Nature rules, and you know, we just try to develop plans to work within Mother Nature's bounds. You know, with that, as we get into moving on down to the Lake Okeechobee discussions, I spent a lot of time this week reaching out, trying to understand all the issues as we go into a low season. You know, it's I'm reminded again, we put a lot of work in at Losum, and a lot of this stuff was modeled out. You know, we've heard the quote, all models are wrong, some of them are useful. But I can tell you one huge mistake that we can make is when you start trying to monkey with a model that was selected as a preferred. We've got to be sure if we're going to do that, and we have the flexibility, if we're going to do that, we got to be sure we get it right. So I'll just leave that at that. Merry Christmas, everybody. I don't know. Do we have a comment period at the end? I'll just say it. Merry Christmas.
We do, and you can say it again.
Okay. All right. Merry Christmas. We'll say it again at the end. Thanks, sir.
Mr. Butler. Come on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of weeks ago, the district had the opportunity to host roughly 50 members of the Board of Directors of the Everglades Foundation out at the Picayune Strand Restoration Project. They were having their board meeting in Naples and took the opportunity to reach out to us to take a tour of the project site. This was the first wet season that all of the pumps have been in operation. And the wildlife was incredible out there. It was an amazing day. There was tons of deer, caracara, wood storks, roseate spoonbills, and at this point of the year, it's dry out there. But the wildlife was so abundant coming off of that wet season. So it was very, very exciting to be out there, and I want to thank Jen Reynolds, Lisa Keeler, Dan Walsh, and Jill Margolius and her video team, and also Adam, Rafi, and Andreas from the pump station team who helped make that visit a success. And I'm really looking forward to the ribbon cutting at the end of January, that we get to put that one a period at the end of the sentence and get that across the finish line, because it's so fitting that today is the 25th anniversary of SERP, with the Picayune Strand being one of the projects that was in the original authorization. And it's very exciting. And back 25 years ago, nobody thought about wildlife crossings, right, like we do today, and putting in opportunities for the wildlife to actually cross safely and to move between natural areas. And so that's one of the things that, Drew, I still want to keep on our radar in our conversations with FDOT so that we can see how we can move that forward. Anything I can do, please reach out. I'd be happy to meet with anyone to see if we can have that conversation and move that forward. But a great day out there, and that project is really incredible to see that restoration and how the wildlife is responding. It's amazing out there. The ribbon cutting, the chair asked me to, the ribbon cutting is January 28th at the beginning of the Everglades Coalition Conference. So it'll be at the same time. Thank you for reminding me. The strategic plan is one of the items that's on our consent agenda today, and I just want to give a shout out to the staff about the excellent work. I encourage any member of the district to dust it off or get it online and take a look at it. This document is really a living, breathing document that sets the trajectory for the efforts that we do here in the district. And staff has put a lot of time into it. I know there was a lot of stakeholder comments as well. And it's really, really hats off, Jen Smith, for the work that you and your entire team did on that. I have a comment regarding the board dates. I know that we discussed the board dates, and Mr. Chair, I know a priority of yours has been for us to go off-site from time to time, and I hope that we still keep that as an important priority as budgets allow, as budgets allow, and not lose sight of that, because I think those governing board meetings on the road have been very useful for us. And in closing, I think that the governor's budget is so exciting today. To hear that news, Drew, I mean, this is great. We get the funding request to keep SERP on track and to get these projects done. Nothing is more challenging than having a plan, knowing the plan will work, and then not having the funding to deliver the results. And this is just so exciting, and the governor's unwavering leadership in Everglades restoration is unprecedented. So thank you for the good news today, and thank you, Governor, for your continued charge. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Mr. Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to echo the Colonel's comments on the strategic plan. It was the first one I've had the benefit of reading as a new board member, and I was very impressed with its quality and the specificity and sort of the mile markers that are included in it. I think that's a great roadmap for us, and I'm grateful to all the hard work. I know how hard those things are to put together, especially the scale of and the sort of size of your portfolio it was great work. I had the benefit of attending the ribbon cutting on Tuesday down in Cutler Bay, and I'd like to recognize Nicole again. I got to sit next to the mayor of Cutler Bay and a couple of the commissioners, and to have a $90 million piece of infrastructure stuck down in the middle of their community and have them they couldn't have been more complimentary of just how great the staff at the district were to work with. And obviously they're very grateful that with all the recreational components that will come with it, as well as obviously its core mission of improving the environment. I just think that's a testament to, just a degree of professionalism that's not all that common, and I'd just like to recognize her again. What else? I think as we make our way through the dry season, I'm anticipating we're going to have some really challenging decisions to make, and I'm just hopeful that we can, approach it with a very level, sort of keeping the near term, but also the very long term in mind as we contemplate our policy around utilizing what's going to be an ever increasingly precious resource in the lake. So, with that, I appreciate everybody's participation today. It's a wonderful day to celebrate 25 years of something I think we all can remember when it was originally announced, that it just seemed like a massive undertaking. Well, at the time, the numbers seemed big as far as the expenditure. I don't know what multiple of that number we're actually at today, but it's probably several times that. Yeah, it's exciting, and I take to heart the sentiments we heard today about just staying the course and keeping our foot on the gas. So with that, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mr. Hurley. Mr. Martinez.
No comments, Mr. Chair. Just Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you, Charlie. Mr. Spotswood.
No comments for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll close with my comments, and I want to echo what my colleagues have said, particularly as it relates to the Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetland Project. That's just a neat project, and it's so nice to see it done. Nothing made me happier than looking at Arella Begay and the smile on her face. And I know she's been working on this as a governing board member and then as a resident of the community and a policy official down there. And it's great to see that finished. And I want to thank our partners at the Corps also for helping me out with that. They're obviously doing more than helping out with. And I think that's our 82nd project, as Drew was saying the other day. So anyone who's in the 70s, you're behind. And part of the reason you're behind is because of our governor, because Governor DeSantis' budgets have been just insane. This is his last budget. I don't know if it's his best budget, but he's certainly keeping the tempo. And I really appreciate that tempo because that's allowing us to keep our foot on the gas. And one of the things I do want to say as we're celebrating SERP and the 25 years of it is we could not be doing what we're doing today, and we could not be executing the governor's funding that he's been giving us today if it had not been for all the people who came before us. And when I say all the people who came before us, I'm going to start sort of at the top with, we have presidents, we have senators, we have congressmen, we have governors, we have state senators, we have state reps, we have DEP secretaries, we have colonels, we have lieutenant colonels, we have majors, executive directors, governing board members, and our incredible staff and advocates. And there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people who've been involved in SERP over these 25 years, and that's not lost on me. For those of you who are thinking that we're done and that we're resting on our laurels, we're not. It's an anniversary. It's just like you have a marriage. You celebrate your 25 years. You don't go, okay, it's 25 years. We're done. We're still going. We've got a long way to go, and as Colonel just mentioned, we've got a ribbon cutting coming up in January, and I can't wait to see Picayune finally finished. For those from my coast primarily who are worried about Caloosahatchee levels, we hear you. I hear you. I'm very concerned about it. Our staff is very concerned about it, and we're paying attention. We don't want to see any harm come to the upper estuary, and we're going to try very hard not to let that happen. I do want to encourage Drew, and he said he was going to, and I take him at his word because I know he will make sure that while the lake level is low, that we do what we can to get in there and clean out exotics and muck and anything else, because we don't always have that opportunity. And Dan, no, I don't want a drought, and I'm sorry you had one, and I don't want one. But but while the lake is low, let's go ahead and make lemonade, I guess. So that'll conclude my comments, and we'll move now to. I always mess this up. We'll move now to consent. If any board member wants to move any consent agenda to discussion, please let me know. Hearing none, we will not do that. Is there any public comment on consent?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have one public comment card from Reynaldo Diaz.
Thank you. I wanted to comment, basically, a simple comment was thank you for item number 20, which is the EEST contract. And a lot of you know me from my nonprofit work, whether it's teaching kids how to fish Lake Worth Lagoon for Lake Worth Waterkeeper. Also, I'm on the board of Everglades Coalition, so I'm looking forward to seeing you all at the conference in January. And some of you also know I was a city commissioner for Lake Worth Beach, where I got to be the representative for League of Cities for Lake Worth Lagoon Initiative. And in March, though, an update, the voters of Lake Worth Beach decided I should have a slight career change, and luckily, Mr. Conboy back there took me on for South Florida Engineering and Consulting on this contract. So it's been, I definitely really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for, it's really easy to get things on consent agenda, but it's so critical. Every little role is important, and it's been really an honor to participate in this. SERP and I actually share a birthday, so thank you for the cake, Drew. But I wasn't particularly useful in high school when SERP was signed, but I kind of look at my career choices and whether it's advocating for the work that you all do, and now at SFEC having a more direct role in participating in some of this work, no matter how small the work order is and whatnot. It's really been a learning experience, and I love doing it, and it's critical work. Loxahatchee River is my home river. I love fishing it, and I just wanted to express my appreciation for being a part of this journey. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Mr. Chairman, we don't have any additional public comment on consent.
Great, thanks. Can I have a motion to approve consent?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Thanks. I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? If not, we'll take that vote. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
And Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez? Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez? Last chance. All right, that one passes unanimously. Now, I think we move to technical reports. And we'll look to Mr. Mitnick and Dr. Welch.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I get going, I did want to mention that there are year-round landscape watering restrictions in effect for the entire water management district. Anybody can go to our website and look up what those requirements are based on where they live. So after the meeting, Dan, I will get with you and make sure that your sprinkler is set responsibly. So with that, you can see that during the month of November, we really didn't get a whole lot of rain. We had about a 1.5 inch deficit in rainfall during the month, but overall district-wide, you can see over here on the right-hand side that for the dry season to date, we're less than half of the amount of rain that we typically get in a dry season. Mr. Butler had earlier on in his comments commented on the wet season ended up about average, but again, that was sort of skewed with the majority of that rainfall being in the upper portions of the district as opposed to the lower portions. But overall, the wet season did average out to right around normal rainfall. But so far for the dry season, again, less than half of what we typically expect to date in a dry season. If we look just at the beginning of December here, we did get some rain in December. The majority of that is clustered up here in the upper Kissimmee Basin, and you'll see that on some of the graphics here to come. But again, that skews this number to be above normal because it was excessive, 300+% up there in the upper Kissimmee is the amount of rain that fell just recently up there, but some of the lower portions of the district are much drier than that down here in the southern portion of the system. So looking at the lakes, starting at East Lake, you can see there's that rainfall event and a little blip up or a tick up in lake levels, both in East Lake and West Lake down here from that rainfall event. So obviously, water managers implemented operations to start moving that water down through the system and return those lakes to schedule. That water will eventually make its way down to Lake Kissimmee, where it will accumulate. But again, as Mr. Butler had mentioned, following the Increment 1 schedule, we're continuing to make those releases. There's a slight tick up there in Lake Kissimmee from that rainfall event, and as that water makes its way down to Lake Kissimmee, but we'll continue to deliver the roughly, I think when I looked at it this morning, it was a little over the 300, close to 400 CFS is moving down the river right now at S65A. Cassandra?
So the conditions up in the Kissimmee River are fairly dry, especially compared to 1 month ago. And you can see 1 year ago, there was still water on the floodplain, but pretty much at this point, it's not. The discharge through S65A, which determines the water getting onto the floodplain, is at 300 CFS, and the mean water depth is about 1/4 of a foot. We have seen a decline in the flows coming through the S65A. We're now well below the bank flow discharge of 1,400 CFS. And you can see it's come down pretty steadily since September. And there, if you look very closely at that upper graph, you can see there is a starting to level off, but it's very small and just recent. With the bottom graph, you'll see that the dissolved oxygen in the river has actually come up very nicely. It has recovered. We are now around 7 milligrams per liter, which is a very healthy condition for the aquatic organisms, and that is due to the reduced flow as well as the lower temperatures.
So looking at how water's moved around the northern portion of the system, you can see here just over 1.2 million acre feet for the water year, but not a whole lot in the last month have come into Lake Okeechobee. Again, that's reflective of that drier November month. Over on the west coast, just under 700,000 acre feet of water have been moved to the Clusatchee Estuary, with only about 32,000 acre feet having originated back here in Lake Okeechobee. Over on the east coast, the majority of that basin runoff within the C44 basin right here has been flowing back into the lake to prop up some of those lake levels, and that's that 67,000 acre feet, which means nothing has gone through the S80 structure to the St. Lucie Estuary. The upper east coast, about 186,000 acre feet have come from C23-24 basins to the St. Lucie, and just over 100,000 acre feet has been moved through C25 around the Fort Pierce area to the Indian River Lagoon. So looking at Lake Okeechobee, this is the conditional position analysis that I present every month. For the most part, the lake this morning is at about 13.6 feet NGVD. It's only come down roughly 0.3 of a foot from the beginning of November, so relatively steady across the month of November. And as we go forward, these projections are informed by the Climate Prediction Center and what they're calling for in the future forecast, and I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentation today. But for the projections on Lake Okeechobee, you can track this red line across being the 50th percentile, so a 50-50 shot of being above or below. That's what call it 11.7 come June 1st. And then this is the 25th percentile down here in the purple. You heard a commenter earlier today talk about entering the water shortage management ban. That's roughly in the April and May timeframe right in here. Mr. Butler.
John, the top little bars up there going red to blue, what, tweak it a little bit, can you put like a percentage degree of how dark that is? And what are we looking at after the red? Is there blue there for like March, April, May, June? Is that blue or is that white?
Correct. So later on you'll see, so for right now, the Climate Prediction Center is projecting a moderately strong La Nina for this dry season. And then once we get out into the March, April, May timeframe out here, which is these lighter blues, they're projecting a shift to a weaker La Nina. So you've heard the expression of April showers. Essentially, that's the layman's terms of what it boils down to. We can expect below normal rainfall between now and roughly February. And then once you get into the March, April timeframe, you get those April showers. And then there'll be a shift in the weather patterns, which will bring some of those spring showers to the area, and it'll go back to neutral before we get to the wet season where it starts leaning back to either normal or above normal rainfall. But for foreseeable future till February, according to the Climate Prediction Center, then we're looking at below average rainfall for the district.
Okay. Oh yeah, that blue just kind of blends in, and it works my eyes pretty hard.
All right, so the lake has had about 90,000 acre feet of water coming in, with about 5,000 of that coming from direct rainfall. Everything else is from inflow off the watershed. And we have started releasing water south and west, as you can see the green and blue on the graph on the right. And that was about 75,000 acre feet that was released over the month of November, going from 0 to 75K. And then there was a lot of evapotranspiration on the lake as well, 124,000 acre feet, for a total decline in water in the lake of about 200,000 acre feet. And that led to a drop of about 1/3 of a foot off of lake stage. That has put us below the recovery envelope for the lake, but we are still well above the 2019 and 2018 levels that we were at. This is for recovery purposes, not too shabby. We're still in good condition for regrowth of the SAV. In fact, this is, I talked to Zach, who you guys met last month, and he said that this is okay for us from an ecological perspective. This is going to help continue with the recovery, and so he doesn't have issue with this. There was a little bit of a drop in the amount of water that was on the marsh compared to last month, excuse me. There's a little bit more reds in there, but the marsh has still got some areas of hydration for the wading birds. So nutrients within the lake. We actually are seeing pretty good conditions. The chlorophyll A in the nearshore and the pelagic regions are still pretty low and have come down off their peaks from the summer. And the activity's still there, and we think that is why the dissolved inorganic nitrogen concentrations, especially in the nearshore, remain low. There is a small uptick in the concentrations in the pelagic zone, and that's because there was a downtick in the amount of chlorophyll in the pelagic zone, so they're not there to take up that nitrogen. Also, you can see the turbidity has increased in the pelagic zone. Pelagic means it's the middle of the lake. That's due to increased winds, and that is kind of hampering a little bit of the algal activity and also driving a little bit of the DIN increase. But for the most part, the nutrient concentrations and the turbidity within the lake are pretty good. Moving on to the actual algae, the latest map from the 5th shows that all of the algae is pretty much in the southern end, in the western, and this is due to the prevailing winds primarily coming out of the northeast. And we've been in this situation for about a month now where all of the algae is in these locations. The concentrations of algae have exceeded the bloom concentration of 40 micrograms per liter in the southern end over the past month. But we've only had one site that showed that there were microcystins in there, and it was well below the EPA recreational threshold of concern. So from the microcystin standpoint on the lake, it's in really good shape, and as you can see, the majority of the lake is clear of algae. So moving over to the St. Lucie, we've got about 181 cubic feet per second coming to the estuary. Most of that is from the tidal basin. None of it came from the lake, and we have not gotten lake water since the end of March of this year. So what that is doing to the salinity gradient, if you can see the two graphs down here, this is last month. The light blue was, well, that indicates low salinity zone. It was out into the middle of the estuary, whereas this month, those low salinity zones are up in the upper ends of the two forks, and the more moderate salinity is now taken over the middle estuary, and higher salinities have moved further up into the estuary. However, salinity conditions for oysters are still within the good range, even though they are climbing over the past month or so. So we will keep a close eye on that. But the oyster recruitment data is still looking really good. So the last collection data was from mid-November, so this reflects conditions from mid-October to mid-November, and we are still seeing, we've got 0.2 spat per shell, which is what would be expected for this time of year. We're starting to see that the oyster activity is declining as we move into the winter. You do see a little bit of decline associated with, there were some salinity drops here, and we had a drop in recruitment, and then another salinity drop here, and a drop of recruitment, and the salinity has now gone back up. So potentially next month we'll be reporting one last recruitment event for the November-December timeframe. That might be a little bit higher, but for the most part, we've seen what we're going to see from the oysters for this time of year. Moving over to the Caloosahatchee, we've had a total of 450 CFS coming into the estuary, with most of that coming from the lake. You can see from this graph up here, the actual flow to the estuary has remained pretty steady with a small decline, but the amount of blue that's contributing to that flow has increased dramatically over the past weeks or so. And what that is doing, again, for the salinity gradient, the higher salinities are moving up the estuary compared to last month. And so this low salinity zone is getting smaller. You also see that the salinity conditions for oysters is increasing, and we are in the good range, the optimal range at Cape Coral, but we are in the stressed range for Shell Point and Sanibel. And this graph, there is a minor glitch. I'm showing you the graph from last month, but I do have the numbers for this month. So the November numbers for Cape Coral is 2.1 spat per shell. And for the Bird Island, it is 8.8 spat per shell. So a decline for Bird Island, but still a really good recruitment rate. And also a decline for Iona Cove, but very much in line. So again, we're coming towards the end of the oyster recruitment season, so these numbers are really good, and we've had a really good year. Even though the previous year was even better, we've still had a good year for oyster recruitment. So you've heard a lot of concern this morning about the MFL to the Caloosahatchee. So I wanted to dig into it a little bit for the purposes of understanding exactly what the MFL is. So it was designed to prevent significant harm for the estuary, and that is the significant harm is the loss of a function that would take more than 2 years to recover from. So that function could be fish production, it could be habitat, it could be Vallisneria, it could be oyster recruitment. Those are the types of things that we are looking at when we are talking about harm. So over quite a few years, we developed the MFL, and we came up with 30-day moving average of 457 CFS at S79. So a violation, an exceedance of that would be when we fall below that. And you can see that we have recently fallen below those levels, and so we are now in an exceedance. But to get to a violation, you need to have an exceedance occur more than once in every 5 years. But I want to caution, so an exceedance occurs in a 365-day period, and that's important because every MFL is written uniquely to that system. So this is not a calendar year, this is 365. And that means that if we get water and that discharge starts bouncing up and down across that line, it's still only one exceedance for this year. So just want to make that clear, that we're not going to have multiple exceedances within 1 year. And this MFL is designed to keep that salinity gradient that you saw in the previous graph, keep it in line so that there's a low salinity zone that is beneficial for the low salinity tolerant species like Vallisneria, and keep it in the right zone for the moderate species like oysters downstream. They want higher salinities. It's designed to keep that salinity gradient in place. And it's designed to keep the low salinity zone species that are more mobile, like fish and zooplankton, from doing what we call impingement, which means that as they're seeking that lower salinity, they move further and further up, and they get to S79, and they got nowhere to go. So that's causing significant harm for them. So we're trying to keep them off of the structure, basically, and keep them downstream. That's how the MFL was designed and set up. It was also designed with the expectation that the reservoir would be online, which currently it is not fully operational. So we are not, it's not unexpected that we are having this exceedance at this time, because the reservoir is not operation. There's not water in the system really to help us meet the MFL. I also wanted to show you another MFL. It's on the East Coast for the Loxahatchee. It is written uniquely for this system. The Loxahatchee is a wild and scenic river that is designed to maintain bald cypress communities. And that is a low, actually it's a freshwater tree. So we're trying to keep the salinity very low. And so the way that it was designed was to create low salinity conditions that were originally found at mile marker 10.2, which is right here on your map, and push that down to 9.2, mile marker 9.2. So we want to keep that area below a salinity of 2. And to do that, we need a flow of 35 CFS. We need to meet both of those conditions to avoid an exceedance. And it's a 20-day moving average for the salinity. So the bottom graph here shows you the flows that we've been having over Lanehart Dam. We are well above the threshold of for the flow. We're about 47 CFS right now, but we are heading, obviously you can see that we have had a decline, so it is something that we need to keep an eye on. And then this graph over here is the salinity with the cap of 2, and you can see that we are well below that. So for this time frame, we are good for the Loxahatchee. I also wanted to point out that the violation for this period is a 6-year period, whereas the violation for the Caloosahatchee is a 5-year period. So each MFL has its unique considerations.
All right, so looking at how water's been moved around the southern portion of the system, you can see inflows into the conservation areas being just above 650,000 acre feet, with outflows down into Everglades National Park, and inclusive of some of that return seepage over here on the eastern side is just below 500,000 acre feet. To the water conservation areas to the east coast, so this is a number that you probably haven't seen for a while. That's probably because we were in the wet season, but now that we are in the drier season, you'll start to see this number tick up as we start delivering water supply out of the water conservation areas to the surface areas along the lower east coast. So that's what that number represents right there. And then coming off from the lower east coast just to the intercoastal, down into Biscayne Bay and along the intercoastal waterway, just over 1.2 million acre feet so far coming out of that wet season. But again, a lot of that has not occurred in the month of November. Looking at the stormwater treatment areas, again, this is a similar story plays out with the reduction in rainfall and the drier weather. Coming out of the wet season, we only had about 532,000 acre feet is what was processed and treated through all of the stormwater treatment areas and moved into the conservation areas.
Moving over to the STAs, we have only about half of the normal volume that we would get at this point going into our STAs. We've up to this year, for the water year, we've got over 5,000 acre feet going into the STAs, with most of that going to 3-4, almost half of that. And we are seeing some really good performance numbers coming off of most of our STAs. We are at 18, 16, 12. These are really good numbers. However, you can see that STA 5-6 is still struggling. This is due primarily to a lot of dry down events that we've been having in those STA cells. Even though the phosphorus loading rate is actually quite low, which is good, and we're below 1 on the phosphorus loading rate for all of our STAs, which is our target in order to meet our performance requirements. So we are taking a close look at the 5-6 to see how we can improve performance for that area. One of the things that we're doing is we adjusted our target stage for that to be slightly higher so it can hold more water for longer throughout, especially during the dry season, so that we can avoid those dry out conditions going forward. So you will see that the stages are well above in the SAV, well above the target stage, and we're doing that on purpose to hold water in there throughout the dry season for as long as possible. The rest of the STAs are at or slightly above their target stages. And this is the WDOT map of those stages. You can see that STA 1 East Central Flowway is still offline for leveling area to get that topography level in there. And so the surrounding flowway cells are also a little on the dry side as that construction finishes up. We also are offline for STA 1 West Eastern Flowway, but the water levels within the rest of the cells within the STAs are at or above target.
So looking at the water conservation areas, you can see up here in the upper right, Conservation Area 1 is below its schedule. It got some of that rain just recently here in the beginning of December, but for the most part, it's below its schedule, and we're starting to have conversations about Area 1 and water supply deliveries to Service Area 1, which is basically Palm Beach County and the Lake Worth Drainage District, and managing some of those deliveries as well. For Area 2, it is above its regulation schedule. If we are forward-looking, for those of you that are paying attention to the SEP 1.0 operations plan process, and they're contemplating a new regulation schedule in that process for Area 2, if we were to compare that anticipated or proposed schedule to water levels today, we're only about 0.15 of a foot above what that schedule would be. So although this shows 1.2 feet, when we look to the future, that would be a dramatically different schedule as we look more at the ecology of Area 2 and the significant topography that goes from north to south. But as I'd mentioned, we are starting to make water supply deliveries out of Area 2 to Service Area 2, which is Broward County. So we're keeping in mind its water levels as we move forward in time. Right now, there is not any water being moved from Area 2 down into Area 3. But I'm sure as we get deeper into the dry season, we'll look to be able to make some of those deliveries, hopefully to support the super colony that sits right about here in Area 3. Down the South Dade conveyance system, pretty much status quo there. We're trying to send some water or what is available through the regional sources to maintain flows down to Taylor Slough at the S199 and 200 locations, but those are starting to dry up as well as we start to talk about how to keep some of that flow moving along, which takes us over here to Area 3. You can see Area 3 is below its regulation schedule, but it's still above its floor elevation down here. So right now we're continuing to deliver the Tamiami Trail flow formula at 787 cubic feet per second out of Area 3 down into the park. But you can reasonably expect that as we move forward in time, Area 3, without additional rainfall between now and, say, February, like I mentioned earlier, that Area 3 will continue to decline. So today, so far, we've had a fair amount of comments and discussions about the water that's in Lake Okeechobee and its competition between water supply, the Caloosahatchee. But let's not forget, the third leg of that stool is the Everglades. And as you'll see in the next slide when Cassandra presents, that the northern portion here of Area 3A is starting to dry down for this time of year.
So here's the WDOT map for the Everglades, and you can see it is a mixed bag of very wet and very dry. And so starting at the top here in Conservation Area 1, there is a small area here that is beginning to dry down, but the bottom half of the conservation area is still pretty wet. Conservation Area 2A is very deep for this time of year. And you can also see where John mentioned this is where we're starting to get dry in 2A. We still have water down through the remaining, and we have water in Taylor Slough and Shark, but we are now dry in Lossman Slough and in Big Cypress Basin. And this is the percentiles for the past 20-year average, and you can see that compared to what we normally look like, Water Conservation Area 1 is pretty dry, Conservation Area 2 is very, very wet, 3A is very dry, and Big Cypress very dry. So we're seeing a system in extremes. We're in the 10th percentile and we're in the 90th percentile throughout the system. We still do have hydrologic connectivity to the Florida Bay through the sloughs in Shark River and Taylor Slough, even though they are declining, but Lossman's has no connectivity. So looking at the water depth changes over the past, since June, starting at the top of the system, Water Conservation Area 1, Site 9, is in the interquartile range, but we are starting to head into the drier conditions here. We did have very dry conditions earlier on the summer and then a rapid increase. And while we're in good conditions right now, though the particular situation that we had was that we were unable to do some vegetation management that was needed in Water Conservation Area 1 because of these water depths. And moving down to 2A, we've got two different stations, 2F4 and 17 in the southern region. You can see for both of them that we are very high and above the average. You'll also see that there's a dotted line, and John mentioned that we're looking at doing a new regulation schedule. So these two dotted lines are the proposed minimum and maximum stage target or depth targets for 2A in these areas. These are based on 5-year averages. So over time, going a little above or a little below the min and max is okay as long as we are generally in that area. Then we are looking good. And the reason for these mins and maxes is for ecological restoration. It's for getting the ridge and slough topography back into this area, which is important for creating habitats for a wide variety of animals, both aquatic and wading birds. The other thing I wanted to point out is the difference in depth between the two areas is almost a foot. Just within that small space, we've got a foot change in depth between those two, which is pretty significant from an ecological perspective. Moving down into 3A, starting with Site 63, which is where the Alley North Colony is. We had a target depth back here in October for the Alley North Colony, so that if we had met that target, that would have set us up for good nesting habitat for when the ibis start to nest in March. And this is the hydraulic situation we would have preferred to see to get nice nesting for that colony. As you can see from the black line, we are well below that initial target, and we're not heading in a direction that looks like we're going to meet the March target either. So we're not expecting a lot of success for the ibis for this coming year. For Site 64, that is more important for wood storks. And this red box here is, you've seen it in other graphs where I've showed you, there's a diagonal that goes through this box. That's the ideal recession rate for wood storks for foraging. And what that does is it provides enough water for the aquatic prey and enough time for it to concentrate so that the wood storks can easily access the food source when they start to nest. They are currently pretty active. They live out on the coasts. The coasts are in good conditions right now, so there's a lot of activity and foraging. But when they come time to nest and they start looking for other places for food, it is very likely that we're not going to meet this target, seeing as we are so far low. So it is likely that the nest success is not going to happen this year, which unfortunately would be the 5th consecutive year of poor nesting for these colonies. And lastly, Site 65, these thresholds here are again designed for restoration of the ridge and slough topography in these areas. This area is usually overly wet, so we have lost a lot of the topography. And we are looking to get that restored. Right now, we are between the min and the max area. The reason why the averages are so much higher is because it's been higher than we would have preferred in the past. But things that we are concerned about going forward beyond just the birds is also soil loss due to the dry conditions. So as the soils dry out, they are peat, they will decompose, we will lose topography, we will release a lot of nutrients. So once the water does come back into the system, all those released nutrients will go into the water, and we will have high nutrient concentrations in that water, which is not what we want. We also are worried about potentially having damaging wildfires and peat burns. So it's something that we are keeping a close eye on. Moving down to Florida Bay, this is the bright spot in the story today. Our salinity are going up throughout the bay. However, we are well within the interquartile range throughout the region. And so while the conditions aren't perfect, they are definitely not dire, so that is good. The Taylor Slough is decreasing over time, and we've lost about 1/10 of a foot there, but we're about near the averages that we would expect for this time of year. So Florida Bay is currently positioned well for going into the dry season, but again, with a lack of water in the system, we are concerned. We want to keep a close eye on this because as salinities increase and as temperature increases, we have the potential for loss of seagrass beds. However, the seagrass going into the dry season is looking really good. We've got a very high diversity of seagrass beds out in Florida Bay, and that diversity is likely to make the seagrass beds very resilient to any increases in salinity. But I did want to talk again about minimum flows and levels for the Florida Bay. So Florida Bay is set up to have a salinity in Taylor River of greater than 30 for 30 consecutive days. We actually did have an exceedance earlier this year. Oops, this one, here we go. Right here, you can see that we had an exceedance in the wet season earlier this year. The other component of the MFL for this one is a 365-day total flow from the 5 creeks to exceed 105,000 acre feet. And that is this graph here. Here's the line that shows where that MFL guidance is, and here is our current flows coming through there. I did want to point out here that this data ended on 11/21, and the reason for that is we are in the process of transferring ownership of those sites from USGS to the district because of cutbacks at USGS, and so we're taking ownership of those sites, and we hope to get those sites back online very soon so that we can continue to get data. Like I said, we are in good shape in Florida Bay, but we are concerned about the dry season and as it moves forward, looking at potentials for MFL violations.
All right, so I had mentioned this earlier, just as we look forward in time from the Climate Prediction Center and what they're forecasting for South Florida, pretty much leaning below normal all the way through about the February timeframe, and then there's the switch to the equal chances, and then as we get closer into the wet season, they're forecasting maybe a little bit above normal. But still, that's all a long way off, and as we're focused on the immediate term through December, January, and February, and we'll see how we get through those couple of months, and then we'll have a better picture of when that transition starts occurring down here in the later months in the late dry season. But reasonably for the next 2 weeks, not a whole lot of rain in the forecast. And with that, we do the coolest work on the planet, so if you want to be part of the next 25 years, come join our team.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yeah, Mr. Karam.
Yes. What should we be looking at in following all of the reports that you're providing us when it comes to an MFL violation?
Could you be a little bit more specific?
Well, what is the significance of an MFL violation? If one occurs, what will we be asked to do, or?
Right,
how-
okay. So when we have a violation, we're asked to create a recovery plan. So that would mean that we need to implement either new monitoring, we need to build new systems, we need to find water somewhere in the system to make sure that this violation does not occur again. So for example, in the Caloosahatchee, the reservoir is the recovery strategy for the MFL violations that we had in the past. So there is significant skin in the game in order to if we do have a violation, in order to rectify that going forward, there has to be a plan to make sure that we minimize that potential going forward.
So if the reservoir is our recovery and the reservoir is completed, I'm assuming we're going to start filling the reservoir when we have water to do that.
That is correct. And we originally intended to start initial fill this wet season, but this wet season was dry. And going into the dry season, it's not looking likely either, given that there's no water in the lake. So next wet season, we will start the initial fill. We will go through what's called OTMP, which is testing and monitoring, and make sure that the reservoir is functioning the way we want it to, and we're expecting in about 2 or 3 years the reservoir will be fully operational. Hopefully we won't have to wait that long to get water to the system, because as we fill, we will still also release simultaneously as the system goes through. So we're getting there. We just had an unusual wet season that was delayed our start of our testing.
Does rainwater that falls on the reservoir now stay in the reservoir?
It does, but it's a drop in the bucket, literally.
Yeah. Understood. Ms. Butler?
Kind of along those lines, one question I hadn't thought about it until saw you present it, John. You talked about heading out the Caloosahatchee. We've had 400 acre feet.
Overall for the entire?
Yeah, overall. So, and I guess I'm not up on the plan for the C-43, the water that goes in, but local basin goes in there also. Have we had any opportunity there?
So for the C-43 reservoir, it will collect basin runoff and try to ameliorate those high flows on the upper end to the estuary. And then on the lower end, it will also release water to keep it above its MFL and get into that optimal range that you heard some of the other commenters talk about this morning, the 750 CFS range. So it'll take a combination of both basin and lake water.
Okay. I don't know where I came up with 400 from. But anyway, okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Hurley?
Yeah, I have another question on the same topic. What is the capacity of the reservoir once it's operational to supplement the water coming out of the lake down the Caloosahatchee?
Capacity-wise, I mean, the storage volume in the reservoir is 170,000 acre feet. Currently, right now, the Corps of Engineers, in partnership with the Water Management District, will be developing the final operations plan that will come into place after that operational testing is complete that Cassandra had mentioned. So through a combination of the reservoir delivery and water from Lake Okeechobee, again, we'll try to get back into that optimal flow range for the estuary itself. So both of them will work together, the lake and the reservoir, to deliver that water. How long? Obviously, it depends on the water year, how much it rained that year, and a whole bunch of other factors, but that's the goal.
But if we were sitting with that reservoir with capacity today, or with water in it, and we had, you know, I guess I'm inquiring sort of what the pumping capacity would be. I mean, how much could we supplement like today's flow from that reservoir to?
Oh, the release?
Yeah.
I think the highest release, and Lucine, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's on the order of we could let out as much as 1,000 plus CFS.
Okay.
1,500. There you go.
Wow. That's a lot.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you both. Appreciate it. We'll move now to staff reports and Ms. Heater.
Good morning. So the monthly financial report is for the first month of the new fiscal year, so October. So the numbers are a little skewed, so please don't be concerned when I read off the revenue versus expenditure. So revenues collected 17 million, expenditures 126. So sounds like that there's a big discrepancy there, right? But we did end, so on a cash basis, right? This is a snapshot, but cash basis, if you recall, we ended September 1.2 billion expenditure, 1.2 billion revenue, but it was 1.23, 1.22, so we had over 100 million of additional revenue that came in. Cash basis, we're okay. We were okay. And we can attribute that to our partners, DEP, and your staff upstairs with how we now do our invoicing. We do not let money lag. So with that said, comparing October to October, we did collect $10 million more, in comparison. And we did spend $2 million less. So we're, positive there. The $17 million that we did collect comprises of $10 million from state appropriations and the rest from our recurring revenues. The $126 million that we did spend, 3% or $4.3 million towards science, 2% or $2.7 million towards regulation, $113 million or 90% towards Everglades and O&M, and then $4.9 million or 4% administration and outreach. We are 60% obligated through the month of October of our funds that are in the budget right now. Another positive, we have worked with the department on a 6-month draw plan of what our projected expenditures are for Everglades restoration. That draw has been approved and released, which has set us up to be able to, cover our invoices moving forward. So we've done everything, to set the fiscal year up positively for cash coming in to cover invoices. The other reminder is that we are still working on our accruals, so you will see a fluctuation in your expenditures in your budget from October to November to December. That $126 million is shown as an expenditure. A big portion of that will probably get accrued back because it was for services through September. Invoices came in October. So you will see some fluctuations. And with that, I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a blessed New Year. And we're looking forward to a new fiscal year.
It sounds like you're ready to go if you're 60% obligated, so.
Yes.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Thanks, Katie.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, as if you hadn't had enough of me today. Let's talk about the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan. I am between you and cake, right? So I've told that cake is a great lunch, and it'll set you up right for the rest of the day to have cake for lunch. So it turns 25 today, right? It turns 25. This is the famous photo of when President Bill Clinton signed SERP into law, and there was a lot of people working on SERP on that day, and we have a lot of people in the audience that are very much committed to SERP. That yellow book, I mean, how many people know? If you didn't know SERP, you didn't know what Yellow Book meant, but we all know what Yellow Book means, and that was the report that was written by the Corps of Engineers, which is the 50-50 partner in celebrating the anniversary of SERP, and we do have representatives from the Corps here today. We've got the principal civilian, senior civilian, Howie Gonzalez, who is the constant for implementing at the Jacksonville District. We have Ava Velez, comms, I can't remember your name, sorry. Jeff, that's right. But Ava Velez is the face of SERP in the current day, as most of us in the room see it. And then we have Major Bell, who is, represents the local area here and is often also the face. And I don't know, Major, if you have, I'd love for you to say something, you know, to talk about this partnership, because it's not just the district.
Chairman, Governing Board, Mr. Bartlett, South Florida Water Management staff. Today marks the anniversary of the signing into law of the comprehensive Everglades restoration plans. Major Corey Bell, Deputy Commander for South Florida, Jacksonville District, United States Army Corps of Engineers. This plan is a chief's report that the Jacksonville District produced that eventually goes through the Secretary of the Army for Civil Works and to Congress to present it, and which authorized this project. You know, countless hours, efforts, planning, construction, infrastructure, operational plans, water control plans, is all contributed to the staff that we have on both sides from the state and federal agencies to complete this plan. It's been an honor to serve in this position and be able to see the progress we've made in our continued partnership. May only be 25 years of SERP, but with South Florida Water Management District and the state is long over 75 plus years, and we continue our partnership today with a celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, Major. We also, as you heard from earlier, we have a former board member, Shannon Estenos, here to celebrate SERP. He must have stepped out, right? But he had to leave? Yeah. Oh, he's going to miss out on cake. So we had a former Secretary of DEP, Mike Soul, who was here and helped work on SERP during his time there. Did a lot of good work. And then, of course, in the audience, we have a lot of staff and former staff that worked on SERP in 2000. Could I get those who are around for SERP when it was authorized in 2000, whether you're former or current staff of the district, to stand? There we go. And then stay standing, and then we have a lot of folks that currently work on SERP at this 25-year. Could you also stand, whether you're staff or a stakeholder? Or a stakeholder, right? Audubon, you need to stand. I want the advocates to stand too, right? You work on SERP. We couldn't do it without you. All right. So I want everybody who stood and everybody I talked about and everybody here, when I'm done, we're going to all stand here and have that big church-like picture for the celebration of SERP, and then we're going to go over and cut that cake. But first, you got to put up with a slideshow from me. Woohoo! All right, so we know SERP. We've seen this graphic many times. It's that funding partnership, trying to get closer to that original flow in the Everglades, the center pane being the current flood control infrastructure that we have today. That is a lot of projects, and our famous watershed our famous
Recording
project
in
map.
progress.
Excellent. Our famous project map is there representing all the different things that we have to do to make SERP happen, and it's basically putting water where we want it to go and making it and conveying it where we want it to go when we want it to go there. So this was the historic Everglades system. It doesn't look anything like that anymore. It's got that massive Everglades that flowed right through the central part of the state, right out of the over the lip of Lake Okeechobee, and that big water river really is what caused some actual problems to people when they were living here. And so we had a lot of folks moving in, and these are the historic projects with Hamilton-Disston and the Everglades Drainage District, trying to make sure that people, as they were moving here, could run their businesses and make a livelihood in South Florida. And so that's some of the early work that provided that drainage, the drainage that started the problem with the environment. And then, of course, we had in the 20s and 40s the major hurricanes taking with loss of life. You can see the flood map on the lower left, and that's the 40s hurricanes, which pretty much inundated Broward County. And that led to the infrastructure we have today, which is the dike around Herbert Hoover, the Herbert Hoover Dike around Lake Okeechobee, and the 2,100 miles of canals providing flood control and water supply for the people of South Florida. And that's what it looks like today, where you have basically berms, levees, canals, providing flood control, providing water supply, preventing saltwater intrusion, and doing what it can for fish and wildlife. And that's that works extremely well, right? We had the same rainfall in Irma as we did in those 1940s hurricanes. You didn't have the widespread flooding like you did back in the day. So it works great. But of course, there's unintended consequences where you have these harmful Lake Okeechobee discharges. You have the lake swinging wildly, high lake levels, low lake levels. You have water cut off from the Everglades, getting shunted out to Biscayne Bay and Loxahatchee. So it's a flood control system that really has wildlife impacts, habitat impacts. That, you know, that's the mission that we're on today, is to try to rectify that situation while maintaining water supply and flood control. And so we had early efforts. We had the Everglades Forever Act and restoration strategies that complemented SERP. This is a pictorial of the Everglades Forever Act, which had stormwater treatment areas to treat water before it went into the Everglades. And it also put in expectations for best management practices for the farming community in the Everglades agricultural area. And then, of course, a lot of investment in research and monitoring. And the restoration strategies and the Everglades Forever Act has had incredible success. You've heard annually the reports on how much phosphorus reduction we're getting out of the farming community, often and always exceeding their goals of phosphorus reduction entering the Everglades, and then the efforts of our current stormwater treatment areas to reduce phosphorus entering the Everglades, and you see it in the data. I'm putting together a data depicting 20 years before 2005, because it was even worse than 2005, where you did still have exceedances in Everglades National Park. But as we sit here today, we are not seeing the exceedances throughout much of the system. I think it's 90% complete. So these early efforts are making a big difference in the Everglades itself. And then, of course, we brought on the Kissimmee River restoration, 25,000 acres of floodplain restored. In the old part of the river that's been restored a bit longer than the newer restoration, we're seeing a 362% increase in the dry season wading bird foraging. And so that's what we're after. That's what we want to see when that floodplain is reconnected. It's an incredible system that we're very proud of. But that didn't solve it. We needed SERP, right? So we needed SERP to make this reconnection between Lake Okeechobee and the Everglades, to try to prevent water from stacking up too high in Lake Okeechobee, and basically uncorking Tamiami Trail and getting all these different sort of hydrologic restoration back in place, whether it's Picayune, Biscayne Bay, Loxahatchee, and River Lagoon. They're all, it's all about, instead of dumping it out harmfully, keeping it in the system and flowing it correctly, timing and distribution to try to get the water flowing right. So it was passed in 2000, but really that wasn't the solution, right? You had to put a finer point on all those restoration efforts. So that led to a lot of planning, a lot of, because you had to take each plan back to Congress for these components that you're trying to build in SERP. And then that led to land acquisition. And so here we are today, and every one of these words on this slide, every one of these bullets, is a plan that has been authorized by Congress since 2000, starting in 2007. And let me tell you, that's hard, right? Getting all of these plans crafted and put before Congress for them to authorize the actual design and construction of them is monumental. And it started in 2007, and we just got 2 more with Western Everglades and the Lake Okeechobee Component A Reservoir authorized in 2024. So it's there, it's ready, right? It's ready for construction and design. And so that tees it up for the golden age of restoration, which is what we're in right now. The governor came in and he signed that order, and he said, we're gonna pump a lot of money into Everglades restoration, and he hasn't hesitated ever since. So starting with the first executive order, then the second, which said achieve more now. Second executive order said achieve even more than that. And it was stressful, but we're very excited to do it. And just starting again yesterday, said here's another $650 million for SERP, right? It's just, we all remember the days before that. We do, right? So this is very exciting stuff, and a lot is coming online. And we have plenty of achievements. The slide is even out of date, right? We're up to 82. Two were done 2 days ago. And they're generational projects. We're seeing the benefits. We're seeing more water go through Everglades National Park. And we've got a new graphic here. This is with the new agreements and finishing the EAA reservoir and SEP. That's what it's going to look like in the future right there. This is what it looks like right now. That's what it used to look like. Pretty big. So let's walk through it, right? So C44 reservoir, done, right? Done. And it is providing benefits, and it's in testing, but it is in providing benefits. This last wet season, not a drop went out of the C44 basin into the St. Lucie estuary because it all went into this reservoir. And that happened the year before. The only time we had to release water into the St. Lucie estuary from that basin was when a hurricane ban went over, since this has been completed, right? It is providing benefits. It's very exciting. And then, of course, we just cut the ribbon on the C43 reservoir, and we've heard throughout the day the importance of the C43 reservoir to the Caloosahatchee estuary. So it is there. We're ready to, we want to get that thing filled so that we can have it for these dry seasons. But again, it's done. Another reservoir. Imagine that. During this time frame recently, we've supercharged Northern Storage. We're getting $50 million a year to implement the science plan and start building out clusters for underground storage. At full build out, that underground storage could be half a foot of water managed on Lake Okeechobee. I just talked about the authorization of the above ground storage for the Lake Okeechobee Reservoir. Another half a foot potential to pull off of Lake Okeechobee and manage for Lake Okeechobee. Incredible. I wish we would have had those already, because we wouldn't have had to go through recovery operations potentially. We wouldn't have had to we wouldn't have lost all this water, right, that now we want so desperately. So, and that also involves the EAA reservoir, which is later in the slideshow. 2 days ago, there's the ribbon cutting photo. Honorary member that day, Arella Begay was right in the middle there. So it was a great event, and I encourage you, when this wet season, when this thing is functioning, is pushing water into those Cutler wetlands, to go see it. It's pretty cool. But hey, that was authorized, 2013, Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands? I don't know the date. I don't have my IDS. I know Corey carries it around with him, so he can let me know. But that is done, right? We just cut the ribbon. An entire authorized project. Next month, another entire authorized project. And that's the Picayune Strand restoration, 55,000 acres. My goodness, getting this done, seeing the benefits. What a great story, Colonel, of all the birds you saw. Because we're having early benefits with the leadership of Colonel Roman. It's like, let's go ahead and turn some of these pumps on, get some early benefits for this system. Uncorking Tamiami Trail, we built the bridges. We took out the old road. We started and finished a seepage wall that is functioning incredibly, that we haven't had to cut off water from Everglades National Park since that seepage wall was done, right? And then, of course, we had another groundbreaking for the Blue Shanty Flowway to just really kickstart the momentum on getting water under Tamiami Trail. And that all kind of stemmed from this landmark agreement that was signed in July. We had plans, we had contracts, everything was, we had our IDS, and then the governor said, let's do it better. And he met with the Army and said, let's do it faster. And so we sped up the EA reservoir by 5 years. And there's a lot of good work going on around that expedited EAA reservoir construction. We broke ground on the pump station. We're expanding the canals to get the water between the lake to the EAA reservoir. The North New River will be done next year, canal, that expansion, and the embankment's going to just be on overdrive, getting it done by 2029. Incredible work. So that started, and we've also already have an STA, so we can move water with that STA from the lake to the Everglades when we need to and when we have water, because that is already built and it's got some nice plants. It's a gorgeous STA out there right now. So much is happening. SERP is really on overdrive, and really when you talk about the benefits of SERP, it's not just the Everglades, right? It's an entire ecosystem. It's an entire economy. The name SERP kind of sells it short, right? Because what we're talking about is keeping water in our system instead of shunting it harmfully to our estuaries, having it for later, having it when we need it, and then treating it and sending it right where we want it to go. So it benefits not just the Everglades, it benefits the estuaries, it benefits people. Imagine having all the water that we lost over the last few years in the system right now, not only for the Everglades and for the Caloosahatchee and for our ecosystems, but also for the people that live around our ecosystems, right? So the benefit, it's the largest resiliency project on the planet. 2 days ago, you would have heard Colonel Bowman said this is the largest ecosystem restoration project in the galaxy. He's not wrong. So we might have to change our language to galaxy. So anyway, it's a great time to be in SERP, and it's really on the shoulders of a lot of people that have been working on SERP for the longest time in the Everglades and in South Florida. You can see in the upper left, we have Bob Graham and Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who were very much champions in 2000 to make this happen. And it's an incredible milestone. But again, we're not done. There's a lot more to do, and I'm just happy to be here to present it. You know, I get to come in at the finish line. Well, not the finish line, but I get to come in when we're in the golden age. So it's very exciting. And really, that's all I have to say right now, Mr. Chair. I'll turn it back over to you before we have a great group picture. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Drew. That was great. And boy, these pictures make some of us look younger. Or not me, but some of us. Those are fun. Thanks very much. What do you want us to do now, Drew? You want us for the cake cutting?
I was afraid to advance the slide, but yeah, we have a video, don't we, Molly?
Oh,
let's watch this video because it's very nicely done.
This is a very happy day for the Everglades and is a signal day for the movement of the world to try to repair damaged environmental systems. There has never been an effort of the scale or complexity that is now underway with America's Everglades.
There it is, the moment that changed the direction of Everglades restoration forever. On this exact day, 25 years ago, President Bill Clinton signed the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan into law alongside Governor Jeb Bush and many other leaders and stakeholders who worked for years to make this happen. Since then, the best and the brightest scientists and engineers have accomplished monumental feats of engineering, planning, and construction on some of the most complex infrastructure projects on Earth. SERP laid out a long-term, science-driven strategy to restore and protect the region's water resources by improving the quantity, quality, timing, and distribution of water throughout the greater Everglades ecosystem. The South Florida Water Management District and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are working together with other federal, state, and local partners to restore America's Everglades. Across the region, recently completed projects are making a tangible difference for more than 9 million Floridians and our environment. And this extraordinary ecosystem found nowhere else in the world is coming back to life. SERP projects are coming online at a historic pace, and this is truly a watershed moment for Everglades restoration. Since January 2019, under the leadership of Governor Ron DeSantis, we have celebrated more than 80 ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, and major milestones on Everglades projects. A generation ago, our Everglades, our river of grass, was in peril. However, decades of restoration work, coupled with recent substantial investments, are working together to improve this ecosystem long-term. And we know our efforts are working. Shark River Slough and Taylor Slough, two of our key indicator locations, are returning to their historic hydration levels, demonstrating that restoration projects and operations work well together to nourish the Everglades and send water south to support the health of Florida Bay. Florida Bay is experiencing more balanced salinity and receiving some of the fresh water it needs. This key estuary system sits between the Florida Peninsula and the beautiful Florida Keys, and the health of the bay depends directly on fresh water making its way south from the mainland. And our momentum continues to grow. Governor Ron DeSantis announced that the state of Florida and the U.S. Department of the Army reached a landmark agreement to accelerate Everglades restoration. Since this announcement in July 2025, we have already reached multiple milestones by breaking ground on the EAA Reservoir's inflow pump station, breaking ground on the Blue Shanty Flowway, and we are working closely with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to accelerate the EAA Reservoir's construction completion timeline by 5 years, from 2034 to 2029. Saving America's Everglades has the potential to be the greatest environmental restoration success story ever told. There is more work ahead of us to fully realize the vision laid out in the comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, but if we continue with the unprecedented momentum and support, we can save this remarkable place for our children and grandchildren. As we mark the 25th anniversary of SERP, we thank our federal, state, local, and tribal partners, our legislators, our governing board members and executive directors, both past and present, our Everglades stakeholders and Gladesmen, and all of the staff and contractors who have worked and continue to work on the most ambitious ecosystem restoration effort on Earth. Together, we are finishing the job and protecting this one-of-a-kind ecosystem now and for future generations to come.
Nicely done. Does anyone have any comments other than, wow?
Just add on one thing, Chair, you referenced it, Drew, you referenced it, the number of people involved. I went to ChatGPT last night and asked that question, and I guess nobody has because it took 48 seconds for the query to come back on the number of people directly involved in SERP. Well, I'll tell you that real quick, but 48 seconds. I learned at a conference recently 1 second on a AI query uses about 16 ounces of water. Drew, I'm borrowing one from you here. So 48 seconds. I burned through some water. I encourage not everybody not to do that, given our drought. But 5,000 to 8,000 people directly involved. And I'd be remiss, we can all think of people who are no longer here, who have died while trying to implement SERP, and just, man, I want to recognize them and realize that some of us in this room will not be here when we finally finish SERP. And it's just, this is a huge monumental lift, and I meant to say this morning. I'm sorry I didn't put, everybody else put their comments in, but I just wanted to get that out.
That was a better time to say it. Thank you. Anyone else? Great. We're going to cut some cake?
Yeah, we're going to, as soon
do
as
the
the
picture.
meeting adjourns, we're going to take a picture here with everybody.
You want to
and-
adjourn the meeting? All right. Does anyone have any board comment? I'm guessing no. Mr. Martinez or Mr. Spotswood, do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Our next meeting is going to be a virtual lunch and learn on January 22nd, and our next business meeting is going to be on February 12th here in West Palm Beach. The full schedule is posted for 2026 on the district's website at sfwmd.gov/governing board. The silent auction is going to be ending at 12:30, so don't forget to place your bids, and this meeting is adjourned.